Hi, Sid Dobrin with Inventive Fishing here, and I've been thinking. So it looks like with all of the chaos that's been growing around recreational fisheries management these last few months, NOAA Fisheries has decided to add red drum in the Gulf of Mexico to its list of wacky policy approaches. Last week, NOAA announced that it would be seeking feedback on a 2-year plan to allow breeding-sized redfish to be harvested from federal waters. Wait, what? We haven't allowed this kind of harvest in decades, and there's a reason we stopped harvesting breeding-sized redfish. That's where the redfish come from. But NOAA has decided that we should again harvest some of the breeders for, quote, research purposes. How do they propose this happen? Through the use of exempted fishing permits, or EFPs. EFPs are issued under the authority of the Magnuson-Stevens Act and or the Atlantic Tuna Convention Act in situations, according to NOAA, when necessary research activities would normally be prohibited by regulation. So basically, the EFP allows permit holders to catch fish that are otherwise illegal to harvest for research purposes. So NOAA is considering allowing EFPs to be granted for the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources to allow Mississippi licensed for-hire vessels to harvest and possess red drum from federal waters during the course of their regular for-hire fishing trips in order to provide research data for 2 years about offshore redfish toward future stock assessments. Okay, I get it, research. And let me be clear here. I'm all in favor of research. Research and science are the key to developing sustainable fisheries management practices. But I gotta say, this petition for EFP status makes no sense. First, let's be clear here about what this proposal plan is allocating. It's not an unabashed open harvest on red drum. It would allow for up to 70 Mississippi registered boats to keep 1 red per angler per trip. And there's also a weight restriction here, limiting the total study to 30,000 pounds of red drum harvest under the EFP. That's about 2,000 fish according to NOAA's estimates. NOAA claims that the EFP would be adjusted as those numbers were reached in order to ensure not going beyond the 2,000 fish limit. Likewise, the fish would have to meet the minimum 18-inch requirement, but would no longer have the maximum size limit of the usual restrictions, thus allowing anglers to harvest breeding-sized fish. Now, when it boils down to it, if NOAA actually limits the harvest to no more than 2,000 fish, that's actually a fairly insignificant harvest extension over the 2-year period, from a strictly numeric perspective. But what's at stake here is the larger philosophical issue about research. First, what happened to the research goals that were initially established last year by requests from the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council to not limit such research to individual states, but to look at the Gulf fisheries stock en masse, and that the studies already in place were already collecting the exact kind of data the new EFP claims it would gather? Second, like the Coastal Conservation Association has repeatedly argued, this kind of data needs to be gathered by scientists, the exact work that is already taking place in conjunction with universities and marine institutes throughout the Gulf states. Oh hell, red drum solo. Look, this claim that this EFP will allow us to gain further data about redfish populations is hogwash. I'm calling toro turds on this one. Look, the fact that this EFP would be just for Mississippi for hire industry should in and of itself be a red flag. And you better believe that if NOAA grants this EFP, every other Gulf state's for hire fleet will be petitioning for their EFP pass to avoid limits as well. Hell, I want to petition for an EFP to allow only Sid Dobrin to harvest over the size limit fish in federal waters. And let's be honest here. Opening this door is just the path to eliminating the upper slot limit on reds, something we drastically do not need. Besides, at best, all this EFP might provide, and mind you here, there's not a shred of evidence saying it will actually provide, is a duplication of evidence that's already being gathered. We will not get any new or relevant information from this. I think the CCA has it right when they say that the entire exempted fishing permit program needs to be, quote, overhauled to require genuine scientific oversight in order to prevent willful misuse. Look, the long and the short of this is that we ought not be harvesting reds in federal waters. Instead, the state water ought to be expanded to 9 miles to allow individual states greater flexibility in the management of their waters. Yeah, that's right, state waters, not federal waters. Look at what's happening with red snapper in the Gulf. It's more than time for recreational saltwater anglers to take a stand on local waters. Fish on.
Can't.